will lay a foundation for our future communications. I encourage everyone to be an active participant and provide feedback so we can improve our sessions. Uh, so for this next slide, slide 2, please. To begin, I would like to outline the framework for our discussion. We will focus on four topics like reflexivity, positionality, empathy, observation methods, and time use methods. And this talk is divided into two sessions. And in the first session, I, Neetu Batra, going to discuss with you all on some concepts like reflexivity, positionality, and empathy. And in the second session, Ashwin will talk about participant observation, quasi-participant observations, and the time use method. Is very interesting actually. And the slide 3, uh, for please. So we are going to explore how reflexivity, empathy, positionality, and time use method can be interwoven to create meaningful, ethical, and grounded qualitative research in the social sciences. As we researcher, we create organized methods for our work in field. We face real challenges when we go, such as cultural differences, our own experiences. So we need to be reflective, empathetic, and aware of our positions in the field. And these qualities are essential for our methods and for our ethical responsibilities, actually. So, approach like time use method can help us get deeper insight into our daily lives. When we ask participants to map their daily routines, we are not just measuring hours, we are entering their world, their rhythms, their struggles, like this. So positionality is what is like situate our role, and reflexivity ensures self-awareness, and empathy builds connection with the participants. And time use provides the practical lens to the ground these values in real data. So these are the four things we are going to discuss. And the first, the positionality. I'm coming back to my part. First concept is the positionality. So the slide 4, please. The term positionality, an individual's worldview and their position they adopt. The concept of positionality encompasses both an individual's unique worldview and the specific stance they adopt in relation to a research task, along with broader social and practical context. It reflects how personal experiences like one's cultural background, social identity shape the way researchers engage with their work and interpret findings. Sorry. So, like people from different culture, different geographical locations, one's gender, one's sexuality, race, caste. In India, caste is very important thing. Economic background or class, nationality, race, these all things. So understanding positionality is a little crucial as it influences not only the research process but also the implications and applications of the research outcomes. So, an example of positionality, it's like if you are not aware of positionality, you don't know what is positionality, you are not aware of this. A researcher from marginalized community might explore educational access with a personal understanding of a barriers, like he or she thinks like the education is the only barrier for their not developing and shaping their questions and interpretation on this basis. Conversely, a researcher from privileged background may focus on institutional policies and like other things. So in this case, what we need actually individual's positionality influence researcher task, and because of his her social and political context, the individual's worldview, like from where he or she is coming, concern. So these all things make the positionality in social hierarchy where you are, where you put yourself, like your gender, your race, your class, your caste, your nationality, everything gives you a position in a society, and it influences your work. your outcomes, the way you think, the way you make your questions, the way you ask to the respondents or participants, or you be a part of that community where you are going to research. So it is recognized as their ontological and epistemological belief influences their research. So here, what is ontological first? Ontological belief regarding the nature of social reality, like knowledge about the world, like if we take an example, we want to know gender. So what is ontological is what is gender, like is gender a biological fact, is a social reality shaped by culture, or political category linked with power. So gender, is it a biological fact or social reality or political category or some of this? These answer what is gender is a ontological. It, and if I want to understand positionality, and another thing is epistemological, like individuals believe about the nature of knowledge, like from where do you, how do we know about gender, like what are your sources from where you are getting these all acquiring now knowledge? Do we study the biological observations or the lived experiences or through power structures? Again, power structures are very important. So like ontology is, again I'm taking example of gender, is a gender biological fact, or you can put it in aging also. Um, Aging, what is aging is a biological fact, is a social construct, like aged people, why do we say particular terminologies to the older population, or is it a loss of power or power category? So like ontology is like what it is, and epistemology is how do we study this, how do we get this knowledge, how do we acquire this knowledge. So in essence, ontology asks what is there, and epistemology asks how do we know. So these two things is make you understand what is positionality, what is your position in the society of yours, and how it affects your research further. So positionality is an individual assumption, and these are colored by, like earlier we discussed about your values and belief. And these values and beliefs of positionality are shaped by your political allegiance, religious faith, gender, sexuality, historical and geographical location, your ethnicity, race, like in India, caste, and social class and status, your abilities or disabilities, and so on. So positionality acknowledges that who we are and how our position affects research encounters. Like positionality reflects the position that researchers has chosen to adopt within a study. Now, like what study you are chosen, it also in your positionality affects this. Like if you people, I don't know if you can guess, there is a very important study and very famous study in which researcher actually made himself a helper or servant of the family. He wanted to study their day-to-day interactions and culture, and he did all the household chores to see the cultural differences and to grasp the reality, because as a helper you get better insights, like how they behave in the family, how they behave with outsiders, friends or family, what type of crockery gifts you are giving to someone or not giving to someone, what type of crockery you are using in the family and with friends or with outsiders, the way you talk with family, the way you talk to the outsiders, and if someone is there, then how your behavior is, like all the cultural things. Because of its position, like maybe after reflexivity, uh, and that person understood that this is the better idea to get the deeper insights. So this is what uh, positionality you can experience in your life, and how your positionality affects your research. Please slide 5. So another thing, it also influences what a researcher has chosen to investigate, like I said, like your what is your initial investigation. Like most of the time, subject we chose for research are based on our personal experiences. Aspired for what we faced, struggles, or sometimes we touched because of somebody's story or life. And there are so many anthropology and even in sociology, many influential works have been shaped by the researcher's personal interest, background, or lived experience. And I can name few of them, like Jaru Neil, an African American anthropologist and novelist trained under Franz Boas. So, her personal identity and experience, her unique access and empathy in her ethnographic writing, you can see in Mules and Men. There is a very famous study of Mules and Men. And again, Liu Abu, so it is about whale sentiments, where she studied Buddhian women in Egypt. And there is a study of Sarah Lamb of aging of in Kolkata of widows, older women and widows who are living there. So, like M.N. Srinivas in India, he is known for concepts like Sanskritization and dominant caste because of his field work in his own region, like Mysore and Karnataka, shaped his observations. So, because he's living there, he is living in this region, and he see what type of culture, what type of things are there, and he did a lot of work on the villages of the Mysore and Karnataka. Same in Iravati Curve, the first woman anthropologist of India with deep interest in family, kinship, and caste, because her personal Marathi Brahmin background, exposure to multiple languages, and influences her book, Kinship Organization in India. So, what we say that positionality influences both how research is conducted, its outcomes, its results, and how can we identify locating the researcher, like what is the subject under his or her investigation, what are the research participants, what are the research context and process. And one more thing, some aspect of positionality are, you can say, culturally ascribed, and we say they are fixed, like your gender is fixed, your race, your caste, your nationality. In sociology or anthropology, they say they are fixed, but there is a debate always. And the another, they say there is a fluid or subjective or contextual, like your political views, like your personal life history and your experiences. This is subjective and fluid. So positionality have characteristics. Some they say are fixed, and some they say they are fluid. So the fixed aspects may predispose some towards a particular point of view. So, for example, if I take from a, I'm going to an urban academic, interviewing rural farmers or older women, and they are perceive me as an outsider, because in gerontological studies, if a younger researcher go to the older participants, either adopt a tone what is not sensitive enough for them, so they are not going to open up. Like when I went for my recent fieldwork in rural areas, the way I dressed when I spoke made it obvious that I am from the city. So because of that, most of the elderly people, especially women, are not opening up in initially. So they were only saying good things and didn't seem very comfortable. But after, when I spent some quality time with them, shared my own struggles as a woman, they began to feel that we belong to the same gender and could relate to each other. Slowly, with my observations about their lives in the village, we started, like, I've seen the observing things, what they do, what they can't. So when we started connecting and then began to talk freely and their about their daily routines, about their lives, about their challenges. So in my experience, if we say, being a woman studying aging issues sometimes created space of trust with elderly women, while other times your caste, class, nationality, race, ethnicity, geographical location acted as a barrier. So recognizing this positionality does not solve the challenges, but it makes us transparent about the lens through which we knowledge is produced. Like, slide 6, please. So now moving to reflexivity, the second concept, I discussed, positionality refers to an individual's position within social hierarchy, which can include factors like caste, class, gender, geographical location, nationality, and more. Though the understanding your own biases and examining how your positionality influences your research or study is known as reflexivity. Like, as a researcher, we are not neutral observers. Like, there is a no study which is a value free, we can say. So our presence in the field influences what we see, what we hear, what is shared with us. Um, so reflexivity, what is the practice of critically reflecting on oneself as a researcher? Our values, our assumptions play a key role in shaping the result of our research. For example, in social gerontology, a researcher who values the importance of social connections, like older adults may focus their studies on community engagement programs rather than merely on the healthcare system, because one know the importance of community connections, social interactions, family, and all. So that person or researcher, by crit- critiquing their own perspective or ideas, make a broader study, make a good study by incorporating all those dimensions or perspectives. So by acknowledging these values, we can better understand how they influence the objectivity of research finding. This perspective allows us to critically evaluate whether conclusion reached are comprehensive and consider broad range of factors. Like, if we talk about the Pierre Bourdieu, is a French sociologist who mostly worked on theory and culture and gave the famous concept of habitus and field. And what he insisted? He insisted reflexivity is central to sociology. As a researcher must examine their own habitus and biases. One must examine their own habitus and biases. And what is habitus? Anyone want to tell here what is habitus? Okay. We will talk in interaction session. So habitus is a concept introduced by sociologist Pierre Bourdieu, refers to the deeply ingrained habits, skills, and disposition that individuals acquire through their life experiences, particularly through socialization. Socialization, as we know, socialization, the first school of socialization is family, second school of socialization is school itself, and other than neighbors, community, and all. So this is within their specific cultural and social contexts. It encompasses rays of unconscious practice. It is not consciously you are taking or imbibing those values, those norms, those culture, but it is unconsciously, because where you live, how people perceive the world, how they respond to various situations, you see and you just take it, and the choices they make, it also act as a lens through which individuals interpret their experiences or navigate. Like, Linda Finlay described reflexity as a continual internal dialogue and critical self evaluation of the research positionality and active role in the research process. So here, understanding positionality and reflexivity is crucial in research. First, one must recognize their position and critically reflect on their values, biases, and perspective. So, if we talk about Margaret Archer, British sociologist, and her theory of reflexivity states reflexivity is the social process of considering the self in relation to one context. Further, she described that distinguished feature of reflexivity to be that it has the self-referential of characteristics of bending back some thought upon self, such that it takes form of subject, Like caring reflexivity involves the navigation of self in the world through internal conversations. Like this self reflection involves exploring our personal experiences and how they connect with the social and cultural influences that shape our actions and choices. By examining their influences, we can better understand our role in society and how our decision affects. Like example, if a college student reflecting on their choice of major subject, like by considering their personal interest in high school and let them to enjoy subjects like math and science. So, they think deeper, they may recognize how their family's expectations, social trends, job markets also influence their decision. So, this inner dialogue helps the student understand not just they choose a particular part, but also how external factors shape their identity and future choices. This reflection gives them a clear sense of their place in academic and professional world. So, reflexivity is critiquing our or checking ourselves, all our values, all our perspective, all our ideas, and getting in conversation of ourselves, like questioning and answering. Then you get a better idea like what you are doing, what type of research you are doing, are you objective to, are you not biased to your writings, what are your outcomes, what your are results. So it these concepts make you, when you go to the field, if you are aware of these concepts, it will really helpful for us to check yourself, like how to interact with the participants, how to interact with the respondents, and are your questions, especially the way you are asking, are the words or terminologies you are using, are they appropriate? It is the right way of asking somebody. Like we generally do research on older population, like they are to how you are going to talk the question, how you are seeing. There are so many things by observing only. You put right now note down the things like this. You sometimes you don't ask. Like it is not a questionnaire where you put down 100 questions and you are asking what's your name, what's your age, what you do, what you don't do, or what is bothering you. Like people are not going to answer this. So you have to be skilled and trained, and when you check yourself, when you know your positions in your society, and so then it gets a chance how to deal with the participants or the respondents. Slide 7 please. So reflexivity considers, like we can say, there is a personal emergent properties, cultural emergent properties, and structural emergent properties. These are the so personal conditions, like your one's identity. You see what is your identity, your worldview, how what is your knowledge, what your abilities, your capabilities, your desires, and culture, like prevailing expectations, norms, and values in the society in which you are living and where you are going. It is very important where you are going to research, what type of norms, values, and culture are prevailing, and what are the expectations in especially on this community in which you are going to study. Is it community you belong to, or is it community belongs to someone else? So you have to work out on. And here these two concepts are very important, even third one also. So the reality of self existence in the world, like social institutions, your social organizations, this is also very important. So reflexivity accounts for those conditions, like personal, cultural, and structure operate in relation to one another to produce form of the individual's context, like individual, personal, culture, or structural. Like reflexivity is, again I'm saying, critical self reflection, how you as a researcher examine the way your identity, your assumptions? Are you taking ages? How you are taking ages? How you are taking old people? So what are your values? What how your presence influence research process and outcomes? So it is a active practice during the research where we keep questioning ourselves. How am I shaping this research? How is my perspective affecting what I see, hear, and interpret? Or realizing that elderly women like were not opening to you because of your some background, and then adapting your approach, sharing your struggles to build trust, how you build trust about asking and getting things, getting insights. So these two concepts we talked about, like first one is positionality, and second one is the reflexivity, and the third concept is about the empathy. Please, we have slide number 8, please. So while reflexivity and positionality help us understand our role, what is our role, where we are in social setups, and empathy enables us to understand the perspective of other. Empathy in qualitative research means listening deeply and engaging with participants lived experience with care and respect. It is very important that if you are listening and you are not listening, like you are not paying attention, you are not saying some like expressions, your expressions, like if someone is sharing story about sad thing and you are like not empathetically involved. It's not about sympathy. Empathy is very different from sympathy. You don't have to show sympathy. What we talk about when empathy is like uh, to move beyond, to detach observation towards what a relational knowledge. It's like in time use studies when with older people, empathy help us to understand not only what activities fill their day, but also what those activities mean to them, like they are going for a walk, for example. So it's only not act of walking, like for health maintenance. Maybe it's a cherished form of social interaction, they enjoy all those things. So you have to see all those things, and you only understand those things when you have empathy. You can understand their struggles, like if you like there is a person, child abuse happened in his or her life, or like sexual abuse, or there is a victim of domestic violence, or there are so many things. You need empathy to understand their struggles, to understand their challenges. So empathy enables to recognize also invisible forms of labor also, like a feminist when they talk about the unpaid labor, such as there are so many, like unpaid labor is in caregiving also, in for the elderly also, like they make like gender for women, it is caregiving is a normal thing, like so these all things statistically you can't capture, you fail to capture all those things. You only do by like Ashwin is going to talk about the participant and the quasi-participant observations and time use method. These all things are very helpful in understanding all those things. So empathy is the process of understanding another person's experience while maintaining a distinction between self and the other. So we can say is an unappreciated way of being, which is essentially for effective understanding, differentiated between two approaches. Like if we, like Paul Ricoeur differentiated these two approaches, like hermeneutics of empathy, like focusing understanding the other, and hermeneutics of suspicion, the critiques power and ideology. The hermeneutics of empathy focus on understanding the other, like what we are talking, and the hermeneutics of suspicion which critiques power. It critiques power, like there is a power relation between the gender or between the class or between the race or between the caste. So it critiques hermeneutics of suspicion. So Linda Finale emphasized the importance of embodied empathy and reflexivity, and highlighting need for researcher to be aware of own emotions and sensations during analysis. Please, slide 9.
Neetu, I just wanted to ask you, there is a question in the chat. Do you want to address it afterwards, or would you like more interaction in the afterwards?
Yes, afterwards. Just I'm
Okay.
going to complete in 5 to 10 minutes, then we will have.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to ask.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's about like if we talk about the empathy, we are talking about. I think I have seen someone who's waiting in lobby. Okay, I admitted. Thank you. So empathy strengthens analysis, like by engaging deeply with transcripts, context, and details. Empathy helps uncover meaning patterns. Like, and another thing is decentralization. Researchers must actively move beyond their own standpoint to approximate participants, like lived experiences, without merging or projecting. Decentralization is very important. And the third is embodied and imaginative engagement, paying attention to uh, body sensations, like we are talking about. Like it's very important, you see when you observe their how when he or she is talking, the movement of hands, the face expressions, the way he or she moves his or her body, um, expressions of sadness or happiness or emotional. These all things are very important while you are observing those things. And but one thing is always there is an advantage and there is a disadvantage also of all the concept. For all the theories there is a disadvantage and limits of empathy also. So empathy alone is not a substitute for systematic analysis. Here we need other concept, like we talk about reflexivity and critique. It's needed to avoid biases, because you can't get emotional and just write down the story and narrative about that woman or the men or you are talking. One has to be checked, uh, reflexive, and can't forget this. So empathy is important, but at the same time we can't forget reflexivity. One has to check one biases. Like if I belong to a community who is marginalized, it's muted.
Not anymore, I think. I think you're fine.
Yeah. So so empathy is important, but at the same time we can't forget reflexivity. So example, like it's a very important sociologist, one of my favorites also, Weberian empathy, and he gave a term Vatsehen, or we try to understand the meaning behind it. In Indian culture, the actions, like if someone is student touching the feet of their children, teacher or elders, so one can say like it's just bending down, and other can say it's due to respect. Like in Indian culture, we show respect, gratitude, seeking blessing by bending down or touching the feet of the elders. So you can what Weber say that you have to understand the meaning behind the social action. Like there are so many social actions, but you have to understand what is the meaning behind it. Is very important. And Weber wants us to interpret the social meaning of people attached to it. Like if a farmer, for example, stick away at night to guard his crops and from stray animal, it is not only a night activity to him, but empathy. We understand the fear of crop loss and the struggle for the livelihood, and that gives meaning to the action. Another example, like we see so many migration, people migrating to big cities for job, for education, and other things. So on the surface, we see migration is just moving from village to city. Just and demographically, we just see and say that there are people are going for the education and job, and but when we understand the Weberian empathy or Witsen, we try to understand the subjective meaning behind this decision. It may economical survival, sending money home, or maybe aspiration, maybe upward mobility, wanting to live a better life, get better education, achieve status. But on the other side, for the parents, for whom we are working on the older population, the same action might means loneliness, but same time also pride in their children's success too. So there are so many meanings of a one social action. So at the same time, migration carries different meanings depending on those perspectives we emphasize. So this is all about, just I'm going to conclude my thing about like interviewing the four dimensions like reflexivity, keep us aware of ourselves, checking yourself critically, your values, your biases, and here comes positionality. When you once you aware about your positionality, you know your power dynamics, you conscious of your power dynamics with this society, with the societal structure, with the organization, with the institutions where you are. Then comes the reflexivity, and third comes empathy, connects to the participant as human beings. And fourth, the Ashwin we are just going to talk about the time use method, ground our insights in every day. With these concepts, you feel better doing these all things. So they transform research into a dialogical, ethical, and human centered process. So when we ask like participants to record their time, we are not simply collecting data. We are yes, we are engaging in a shared meaning of making. Reflexivity ensures we recognize our influence. Positionality reminds us of social locations we occupy, where we are. Empathy ensures that we truly listen, and time use method give us tools to make invisible lives visible. Or there are so many things. So at the end, positionality, who you are, your identity, standpoint in the field. Reflexivity, what you do, and with that awareness, critically reflecting on how your positionality shapes the research. So this is okay. Now we can go for the questions and if anything else.
Thank you so much, Nico, for a lot of food for thought. I'm sorry also for my voice. I have a terrible cold. And we have already one question in the chat, but I really invite everyone to post their reflections in the chat or even also raise their hands. I hope that we will manage, Basha, to. So I will read the first question, or I'm sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Motohide Miyahara. If they want to ask this question themselves, then please go ahead. I don't know if the participants.
I
Yeah.
just read one first. I just read what I wrote. How critical must we be for our self-reflection to be truly reflexive? Is it ever possible to fully recognize our own biases? Perhaps the moment we become aware of one bias, we risk becoming blind to others. And this is a theoretical question. Practically, for example, if you submit an article to a journal or PhD student submit thesis, who can judge that your reflexivity is true or not, or good enough to accept a paper or PhD thesis?
Actually, reflexivity is a practice you are doing whole life actually. Like at the age of 18, you are not aware about all those biases, but at the age of 40, you are, but at the age of 60, you are sometimes you are more biased to something. So reflexivity is a process, is a practice of doing things, like checking yourself again and again. In PhD, or one can say, like it depends upon your writings. The guide or supervisor who is reading, he's from or she is from the third party. He If he belongs to, like, there are things like, if you are working on some community and your guide also suggests that you work on this community because he or she feels that there are some challenges and problems, you have to show up to the world that these challenges are there. So this is different. But if you are doing this thing your own, and your guide or supervisor or the editors where you are publishing are saying, like, generally people who are in journals or editors, they know things, like they can comment or suggest if you are not checking other side of other aspect of the story. Like sometimes we get very emotional and we just write down the narratives in a very emotional way, like a story writing, but we can't check other aspects, like other struggles, other narratives. So like, you are saying, it's recall me a moment of one my friend. She's working on some marginalized community, and what she said in her paper, that generally people think that education is must for their understanding of vote behaviors. But she found out in study that they are very clever and understanding whom to vote and how to vote. So they are very what can I say? They are very biases about all these things, and this is a practice I can only say. And you check yourself, you talk to others. Like research is not you do in a confined one room. You talk to others, you discuss others, and then you will bring other perspective in your research or things. Is it okay? Are you satisfied, or you need some?
Not at all, but it's okay.
Yeah, if I may add here, I felt the question was very interesting, and are you able to hear? Is everyone able to hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
I just wanted to add, I mean, obviously, it was such an interesting presentation. And then also the question, what is the extent to which we can be critical of our own reflexivities? And obviously, I think I would acknowledge in my own work, and I think most of you would agree, that there are limits of how reflexive you could be in terms of writing. Um, Obviously, you try to be very reflexive of your own positionality and your own circumstances and situations in the field, but also while writing, there is only up to a limit that you can justify. Yeah. So I think as till the time that you give, you provide empirical evidence and also your own positionality, and you explain and justify it. I think, as you were saying, that, in terms of writing papers and for the reviewers, you try to justify as much as possible. But then you also keep it open, telling that, there could be other angles to it. And we as researchers are always open to hear what other people have to say and add and contribute to our work. So, I mean, that is how I also manage, because it becomes very messy. It becomes very complicated in real life. But then as much as you put it out and tell it to the world that, this is how you have worked, I think it should be all right. Yeah.
Yes.
We have another question. Thank you, Ashwin, for following up on that. We have another question by Francesco. Francesco, you want to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, thank you very much. It was, I think, a quite nice talk on some classic reflection on qualitative research that we always have to reflect on as an anthropologist. And I would like to stress a fact that, I mean, one of the standpoint that in anthropological theory on reflexivity, positionality, and ethics is that all of these three dimensions do not exist outside the fieldwork. So when you enter the fieldwork, it's also your own identity, positionality, reflexivity that shape and is shaped by the interaction of research participants. So it's not like there are variables that you can calculate and is isolate. So this is one of what anthropology, anthropology epistemological key is that the fact that we do not only shape our fieldwork, but it's also the fieldwork that shape us. It's a reflect the measures, the extent to which this relationship is actually carried on, the extent to which the fieldwork can shape us, and we can do shape the fieldwork is what we cannot predict, and it depends on every single case. So maybe my question is, grabbing on their own research to our speakers, if they can think about the situation where they thought that their own positionality and ethics was shaped by the fieldwork. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesco. Was the question clear, Neetu?
No, I couldn't hear actually properly. I don't know why voice is breaking. Please you summarize in 1 or 2 lines if you're able to hear that question.
I'm happy to summarize it, Christina, if you haven't. So the Francesco has stressed that reflexivity is not, as well as positionality, and all these dimensions are, as anthropologists insist, not a pre-existing fixed variability, but it actually exists only in the situation of fieldwork. And the question to you were that what you think of, what is your reaction to that? And he asks if you could share a story from your field where you think that your own positionality has been shaped by interaction in fieldwork.
Not only you transform the story, the understanding of the story, but how the story actually shaped you, transform you, and what were your reaction?
Okay. So you are very right that actually when you go in field, like when I was just beginner, I go to field. Uh, there is no training of those concepts and things, and I went there, and then I realized that people uh, like I'm sharing one story. I started my working, and there was a person in a village, and I took him. And he's in India. There are different caste, and I went to a village which is a Yadav village. There are villages which is of particular caste, and as I'm not belonging to that particular caste, and when I went there, and they all are presenting a very good image. They are not talking about their things, their culture, on they are showing us all good culture is there, there is nothing bad in it and all. But when I took a person from the same caste and from the same village with myself, and I intrude the all things, the they are more open to me, and then I realized that my position, my caste, and my thought process, the way I talk, the way I dressed, all things matter. So, in one incident, even a lady questioned me, why are you not putting sindoor like we put sindoor who girls are married? And they felt that I'm from a distant or different community. So they are not opening up. So these all things happen in field. And when you go and realize these are the practical experiences, and you check yourself, and sometimes we take people from the same area, but other thing what I'm talking about, like there is a study, if you know about Paul Brass studied here in India, a study of like Hindutva, how they are taking things, and there is a good study. So what happens, like we sometimes went to the field and skip. As an Indian, I know that these things are happens everywhere, so I missed all those small things. But if an outsider you are there, like if I'm not belonging to that culture or community, I went there, I will go there, I can check those small nuances, those small cultures, how people sit, how they behave, who is going to pick the water for me, is a female or male in some community, how they are sitting arrangement, who is sitting up, who is sitting down, who is sitting first, who is sitting next, and which crockery they are serving me, how they are behaving in front of me, and how they are behaving when I come from there. So there are so many things in the field. When you go, you experience those things, and these are the only no, you just read in the books and texts, like positionality, reflexivity, and empathy. But when you go to the field, you experience all those things. So you are very right that it's all about the experiences, and as I said earlier, these are all the practices when you go to the field you do. And even this time I'm feeling very handicapped that I'm not in front of all of you as a physically, we are not interacting, because this is the also limitation in online interaction. You can't show many things here. Anyone else want to
Francesco?
add?
Francesco, does this answer your question?
Let me,
Course, like,
Francesca.
just collective. Oh, please.
So we
I
have
can't
we have
hear.
one. Are you okay? We have one more
No, I'm not.
question. Yeah,
Good
Francesco?
answer. No,
We have one more question in the
no,
chat.
no.
I wanted. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Connection is so
Voice is
bad.
breaking actually.
I don't know. Maybe I just want to briefly follow up on that, because and then take the last question in the chat. I think what Francesco is aiming at is also the fact that the field is a practice, right? So that
Yeah, field is
that
practice.
that we
It
are
is
moving
said by the
from
Pedagogo also.
yeah, so that we are moving from reflexivity to diffraction, that it's actually, which also refers to the first question by Motohide, that there is no way of stepping outside of this field, that we want to reflect on our own position, so that we get that we need to be responsible to a certain extent to our interactions, follow our interactions, and how they change us, and how the field makes us fluid to a certain extent, right? So there is a last question by Mia Beck. Mia, are you okay? If you're okay with, I'll read it. If not, please speak up. So Mia is asking, I'm sorry if I missed this part, but are there approaches that could be recommended for exercising reflexivity?
So is there any question or?
Yes. Did you not understand? Shall I repeat it, Neetu?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't.
So the question in the chat is by Mia, who is asking, I'm sorry if I have missed this part, but are there approaches that could be recommended for exercising reflexivity? I think she is aiming at the
Exercising. Okay.
yes, practicalities of it. Yeah.
How exercising is like we can do in workshop also, like by making a groups and questioning, like you can make like we can do in future like this. If there is a number of participants are small, like 5 to 15, we do those exercises. Like reflexivity is like, if you like, for example, you make even you do, I think you people do, but you don't know that you are doing that time. Like you make some questions for your research, whatever, for the research paper, for the PhD, or for the MPhil, or for the any dissertation, you make your questions, and you go to the your teacher, your supervisor, to go to discuss something, and they say, no, no, this is not a right way of asking, and this question is not appropriate, and then they say, go and check yourself, and you do this thing by checking yourself. And this can happen by in exercises, like we make 2 to 3 groups, and just put any issue, and tell to the students that make some research questions, or find the research gap, and what are the challenges behind them, make this thing, and then we go through the discuss those things, and realize one way or other way that what are the gaps and lacuna in those questions. Like we can do this way also, and if you or people are going to add something, please welcome. Like in
Maybe the
activity.
presentation by Ashwin can give us some concrete, because we are I hate to do this, but we're kind of over the half of the session. So maybe it's good
Yeah,
that
sure,
we
sure,
keep
please,
questions that are still there. You can still post them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on them. But I think that the presentation by Ashwin also takes us back from the researchers' engagement to participatory research, which I think also touches upon this kind of what Homi Bhabha calls a third space, where we might start to think differently about not only about our own positionality, but also how so this third space where our positions become hybrid, right? Where we all become hybrid to a certain extent. So maybe it's good to switch now, if you agree, Neetu, to Ashwin, and then
Sure,
come
please.
back with all the questions you might have. Because there is Daniel, I keep your question in mind, and if you agree, we will come back to it after Ashwin's presentation. So Ashwin, thank you very much, Neetu, for a very broad and engaging talk. And Ashwin, if you agree that you tell me what to do, I think this is the first slide.
We can go back to the last slide. Actually, I would want to.
Okay, just give me the right commands and I'm able to execute them. I'm a very simple computer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Neetu, for actually bringing all the discussion threads out for discussion, and then I'll continue building upon that. But at this point, I would request everyone that, I mean, you are social scientists, and you might be working in the field or would have worked previously. And if you could go back and think about reflexivity and positionality and how you try to operate it in your fields using these questions, that, how my presence affected the stories that I got. If you could step back, and that also in some way touches about how do you become, or how do you exercise reflexivity. So the main idea of exercising reflexivity is that you step back from what all information or the data that you have gathered. Data, I would not use the word data, but then the stories and the narratives that you have gathered, and how that has shaped the findings, and how this, because it's very difficult to separate out these three things: positionality, reflexivity, and empathy. And they actually, in the field, when you're out in the field, they work in tandem. It's also dynamic. So they are working simultaneously, but also they are very dynamic in nature. So how that affects the outcome, the stories that you're getting from the field. And building on those ideas of reflexivity, positionality, and empathy, I'll switch on to the methods, which is the next slide, where I'll be talking about the qualitative methods, but particular qualitative method of observation. So as social scientists, we know that we all use qualitative methodology. And when I say qualitative methodology, there are so many other methodologies, ranging from interviews, ethnography, focus group discussions, even surveys and questionnaires. I mean, even as qualitative social scientists, we tend to use surveys and questionnaires. But what is so particular about observation? And as anthropologists, and I'm also trained as an anthropologist, what is this very specific nature of observation that brings forth another angle, the idea of how we can use reflexivity and positionality in our field? I'll not go into the details of what exactly participant observation is, or ethnographic observation, or case study observation is, but then what it does is that I personally believe that how they are strong, how it is a strong method to bring out something that is not being said. So our informants, our interlocutors are actually not saying out, but you're picking up those cues, and that is your reflexivity. And those cues, why are you picking up those specific cues? Are it also, a lot of it also depends on the positionality. You start questioning that, how your informants are responding, how they are responding, what kind of data that they are giving. I think Dr. Neetu also talked about gestures and the reasons um, of how one how one reacts or responds to certain questions that we have on field. So these are small observations that one does as an anthropologist. We are constantly picking up on those cues where the idea of reflexivity and positionality actually comes inherently. So we are not even aware sometimes, but it does come. And as a researcher, and as we gain experience, we tend, or we need to be more critical of why we are picking certain cues. An example that Dr. Neetu gave, that, someone, and I think that is something that has also been discussed in anthropology a lot, as an insider working in the field and as an outsider. And what are the cues that one picks up? What are the disadvantages at some point of being an insider in the community that you're studying? We tend to lose out on many things that might be not so obvious for someone who's not from the community and studying that. So the idea of observation here becomes interesting because it brings forth this idea of reflexivity and positionality all together. But then what is something that runs across these methodological approaches is the idea of time, which I'm going to bring in, which is that, these observations or your field notes or your field data with time, how that changes and how your relationship with your informants also evolves with time. That has been discussed a lot through rapport formation in anthropological fieldwork studies, how you build that rapport. In my own experiences with time, and the more that I have engaged with my interlocutors, the kind of data that I'm getting. To give you one example from my master's thesis, I remember that I was recording all the interviews, but then over the period of months, as I would stop the recording, and then the things that I will get from my informants. And I could see that, just stopping the recording and the kind of information I'm getting then. So it seemed that my interlocutors were slightly hesitant of the recordings, although obviously they gave consent. It was not that I was recording without consent. So the idea of time is a very strong predictor of how, what, when of the data. I mean, how information is being given to us, to researchers, what are the information that is being given, and also it affects the quality of data. And I think that is the reason that, that makes ethnographic work particularly very interesting, because the informants, they spend a lot of time with their informants. But at the same time, the other angle with time is that are the interlocutors or the participants, I'm using the word participants, interlocutors, and my informants interchangeably, though there are slight differences in these three terms, but then the respondents, if I may club them together. So the respondents and the position or the power dynamics between the respondents and the researcher, is it always equal? And that is a question, and in some way it has been criticized in qualitative methods that, the power dynamics that continues in qualitative method. As a researcher, I would hold certain position while I'm going out in the field and collecting information. And therefore, as we move on to discussing to the next slide, where we talk about the participatory methods. So it's an extension of qualitative methods or methodology. And in the next slide, Christine, we will discuss about participatory methods. So what participatory method does is, it can be understood as an extension of qualitative methods, where as a researcher, you try to be more engaging. You try to bring in the concepts of reflexivity, positionality, and empathy into the field. It develops so participatory methods is something more recent and more lately. It has been explicitly discussed, building upon the critiques of the extractive methods. So the scholarship says that how qualitative methods and not understanding the power dynamics in the field results into this very extractive nature of information that we get. So it's always the researcher always gets a higher position where they get information, but then in most cases it's just data collection, but never goes back to the field. It also develops it has gotten influence from the recent more post-critical studies where there is this focus or push towards decolonization of knowledge, where the information or the informant is not just giving us the information, their lived experiences, their local knowledge, their indigenous knowledge is as relevant as the scholarship that we produce. So we are not just the knowledge creators, but also their experiences. I mean, because they are the ones who are giving all the information, and we build upon on those information to create knowledge. So it is something that we develop. So participatory method is something that develops over qualitative methods, where you try to give the onus, the responsibility, and also try to engage the informants as much as you would want yourself to be engaged. So it emerges as the participants actually emerge as co-creators of knowledge, and you share the authority with them. It's not just one-sided. So you try to dismantle the power dynamics that exist in the field, where you engage participants equally, not only while collecting the data, but also in terms of understanding the field, what kind of questions one would or one should ask in the field, and also in terms of analyzing the data. And how can that be done? This is something that is it also raises this question that, are qualitative studies not participatory enough? And I'll repeat that, I think this is the first time when I was reading about participatory methods. This was my question, because anthropologists have been doing that for the longest, right? We go to the field, we spend time with our informants, we try to understand their life. But then I would ask this question that, do you think that it is participatory enough? And something that we can come back to while doing the question answer round. This shift obviously is motivated by the different turns that social sciences is experiencing. So for example, the focus on post-colonial approaches, or the focus on the body, or the focus on the agency. So different turns that social sciences has been experiencing across disciplines. So not just anthropology or sociology, but also literature, also philosophy or psychology. So other fields have also experienced this shift, and that has been clubbed together under participatory turn, which was a move to a shift away from the extractive methods, where the focus, you challenge that, who has the power and who is giving you the knowledge. You focus, you try to understand the situatedness of the knowledge that you're getting, and also giving voice and agency to your informants. Um, and I found that, participatory methods that way are in a way that can be said that, it's a very interesting way of bringing in the idea of reflexivity and positionality more upfront. As an anthropologist, you always think that you're trying to do it, but um, as um, as someone who's participating or using participatory methods, you try to bring it more in a more forceful way, where you give voice to your informants. Um, at this point, it's also something that, the idea of how with time and how with shifting the power dynamics, your own temporality also comes in. When I say this with my own temporality, I mean, so for example, I'm currently doing my field work here among Indian immigrants in Germany. There is obviously this push to finish my field work as quickly as possible, so that I can publish, right? So my own temporality is really pushing me to do certain kind or certain do data collection in certain way. But then when I was taking out time for field work, I did not realize that organizing of the data, understanding the data, it takes time. So how, as Christine was also referring to, this whole idea of moving it into a third space where your own temporality kind of interacts or in some certain way opposes or stands in contrast with the temporality of the field. Because, you know, when it comes to rapport formation, in terms of maintaining that relationship, um, it takes time. We completely forget the temporal aspect of data collection or of field work. And that is when I think many scholars have criticized that, you know, we end up being very extractive of our fields, where we tend to get data and then completely forget about our relationships that we developed over the field as soon as the data collection is done. And this whole idea of reciprocity then emerges, that, you know, how you give back and how you maintain these long-term relationship with your field informants. Um, so how this idea of time actually intersects with field time, where it does take time to have access to the field and build that trust, but also with the academic time that you're working on certain deadlines, we have funding pressures, how that contrast with the ethical time as well. So the different temporalities that come in sharp contrast, and we are constantly trying to negotiate. As a researcher, you're constantly trying to work around these these different forms of temporalities that come in when you go out in the field. Uh, Another thing that I'll add on here at this point is that, you know, I've been working with the idea of time and temporality, both theoretically and methodologically. And I will pick up one particular method that I've been using, which is time use. And I hope that it doesn't make the situation very complex, but how using that method, I'm trying to push forward this argument that how a certain method, a qualitative method of time use data collection, can be it's a qualitative method, but then how that can be extended or pushed towards participatory sides. So as of now, I'm giving you two blocks, which is qualitative and participatory methods, and how certain methods can be pushed from qualitative to the participatory side. And for this, I will give you a brief overview of what exactly the method is, and we can go on to the next slide. So this is, I'll be using the word time quite often, so I hope that it doesn't confuse you, but we can always come back during the question answer round. So I'm looking at the different temporalities, but I'm also understanding the lived experiences of people through time. And for that, so this is based on my PhD, my doctoral research, where I was looking at the everyday subjectivities of older people in India and what are the different activities one would perform after their retirement. So after the age of 60 years, what are the different activities they are performing? And through that, I was trying to understand their everyday experiences. So what exactly time use method does is that I would give out time diaries, which is mainly capturing information on the different activities one does across different timestamps. So every hour there would be a timestamp. They would give you the kind of activity they are doing, if it is a work day, if it is a weekday or a weekend, and few other different contextual information. It looks something like this in the next slide we can see. So a time diary is something like a diary format where you have columns of time, and then on the left hand side you see the columns of time, and then you give information on what were the different activities you were doing, with whom you were doing, were you enjoying that activity. So this is one kind of time use diary. People, researchers basically can uh, um, 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 uh, twist and turn according to what they would want to look into. And my time use diary looked somewhat similar, but there were some other questions as well. So this is how I collected information. Um, One interesting aspect with time diaries is, as we move on to the next slide, we get from this kind of a diary, we get information on timestamps. So it's quantitative data that you get in. And an interesting thing with time use studies is that you can analyze this quantitative data, the timestamps that you're getting, through secondary data analysis like statistical analysis. But there is also the qualitative side of it. You can understand, why people are doing certain activities at certain time, and then you can complement it with qualitative interviews. So here for, I'm referring to the different techniques that people use. It could be time diaries, it could be just taking interviews, participating with the informants and seeing what are the different activities one does. So this particular method of time use lies at this very interesting intersection of qualitative and quantitative. But one would say, and one would argue, that this is qualitative in nature. But how do you make it participatory? And that brings me to this interesting thing of how I'm engaging, or how I engaged my participants or my informants during my doctoral work. So because I was looking at this idea of how they are spending their time, I gave the onus on my informants of what would be considered their free time activities, what would be considered paid activity, what would be considered unpaid activities, and how do they structure their sleep time. So it was not me. And also this brings in the subjective ideas of understanding time, where, for example, free time would be something that, that I consider unproductive. But through my field work, I actually got to know that my informants, older adults, would actually do very rigorous activities or exercising, because they considered that free time should not be necessarily unproductive. They wanted to actively use that time. So, so this was one aspect to it. The other aspect to it was that I gave them diaries to fill for 7 days. And it does get overwhelming for the informants to do it, like fill 1 hour timestamp activities every day for 7 days. So they said that, no, I think this is not going to work. I'll only fill it for 1 day. And this was also keeping in mind that, my data collection was happening during the first wave of COVID, which is 2020. So they would say that most of my days look similar, and because everyone was in lockdown. So how I'm arguing that, giving the onus to my participants in deciding what or how my diary should look like, also defining the different activities they refer to as free time activity or leisure activities, or activities that are focused on health or on their well-being, and then what is considered paid and unpaid activities. Um, so this is how I try to make them participatory in nature. Uh, um, yeah, so, and then also in terms of the analysis, where I asked that, what would be considered um, um, free time activities, and that was complemented. So my diaries were further complemented with interviews, because the diaries and the information on the diaries would not suffice for the information, the kind of information that I was looking at. So that is the argument that I make, that how qualitative methodology or qualitative methods can be further stretched to make them participatory in nature. And at this point, I would also ask, and maybe ask all of you to think about how these things can be in your own in your own methods that you're using, how they can be pushed to incorporate your informants, your interlocutors more actively. So it's not just during your field data collection, but I think many of us also do exploratory studies before going to the field. So engaging them more actively in terms of um, um, working on your interview guides, in obviously in terms of data collection, but also in terms of analyzing the data and asking, maybe asking them of why certain things are happening in the field, what are the reasons. So so engaging them more actively in the field. But we can hear more about what others have to say and how they think that, participatory methods can bring out that active engagement, but also the idea of reflexivity and positionality uh, um, more explicitly in our field works. And then I will end from the next slide. So it's in the next slide. So this is something that I asked, that, it would be interesting to actually listen to one another of how our temporality are actually overlapping with the field work, how our own temporal schedules are affecting our field work, and how it also helps us to bring certain aspects of positionality and reflexivity. I would love to hear from other people, but at the same time also uh, end up with the ethics part of it. Although this is the last slide, which is the next slide, we'll come back to this previous slide, but this is the ethics, although the last, but we all know that this is very important in the field. Um, And we cannot emphasize enough that the idea of consent and confidentiality, because I mean, a lot of our fieldwork depends on the trust that we develop, the rapport that we develop with our informants. So always having verbal and written consent, but also sharing with them. So for example, in my fieldwork, I always say that whenever my informants, if at all they're uncomfortable or not, they don't want to share information, I always say that they can stop or not answer or decide to not answer very upfront before starting the interview. Also trying to so for example, I'm working with the immigrant Indians here, so they are slightly critical of sharing everything in the first go, which is completely understandable. So I always emphasize that I will not use their names. Pseudo names will be used, but also I'll anonymize the information that I'll be using so that no one can track back that information to them. And emphasizing that over and over again. And then this power dynamics that happens. And I feel that, with this discussion of time, temporality, positionality, and reflexivity, it really helps you break down that power dynamics. And if we try to do that in the field, we'll see that, how that actually really affects the kind of data that we are getting. It really enriches the data that we are getting. And I feel that this is one of the best ways to overcome the power dynamics that exist in our fields. Uh, yeah, and I would really like to hear about the ethical dilemmas that one faces. And I can also share from my own experiences the ethical dilemmas that I have been facing in my field. So I'll end here, but then I do look forward for more questions and engagement. And I think we both would be very interested to actually talk more now and hear about your experiences of reflexivity, positionality, and the idea of time, how you make sense of all that in the field, because as I said, it all happens very dynamically, very much in tandem, and it's sometimes it becomes very messy in our heads, I feel. And to get it out on paper, I think we can actually think together of how each one of us can make sense of the messy things that we get in our head and share the information outside to the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashwin, for giving us such an inspiring talk in such a short time. That is also really opening up the floor for both theoretical and ethical and pragmatic questions. I hope you don't mind that I posted a reference to a book on time in the field, an edited
Yes.
volume from 2016 in the chat that I was thinking of. I hope you don't mind me doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is this is what they're thinking, but that's quite diverse. We have some questions. I'm going to, so you can either, to the participants, you can either post in the chat or simply raise your hands. We also have the question that I paused for a while, Daniel, but I hope that you're okay that we first deal with the time issue, and then I'll definitely come back to the question later. Just to keep our ideas a bit sharp now that they're there. I have one hand.
I see Shivangi's hand up, and I
Yes, and I also have a comment by Motohide Miyahara again. Thank you. Thank you, Neetu, for your interesting talk and efforts to answer my difficult question. I like Ashwin's idea of open attitude towards reflectivity. Perhaps an open attitude is important for field ethics too, in which he connects Neetu's talk to Ashwin's talk. Ashwin, if you want to reply to that, feel free. Perhaps an open attitude is important for field ethics too.
I don't remember the question, the first question that he asked. They asked, but then I mean, it goes without saying that it's. And I think, as all of us would agree, that there is a lot of back and forth that happens during the field work and in the field and in our mind as well, where we are trying to make sense of all the all the messy information that we get, and then we start questioning, and then we try to be critical with our reflexivities and positionalities, and we start questioning each and every sentence that was being said in the field. So it does make it more messy. And I think keeping it open is, I feel from my own experience, is the only way out, where you try to give as much space as to your informant, but also to yourself. And especially while writing, you keep it open that, there is no, there can't be an objective study. This is what I believe in, because as social scientists, and as social scientists studying society and people, we are full of biases. And I think the only way out is to pinpoint those biases and say upfront that, this is the lens that I have taken, and there would be biases to it. So there is no objective study per se.
Shivangi, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, hello. Hi, Ashwin. It was such a great presentation, and also I thought it is a good opportunity to catch up as well. So I just wanted to reflect some, as you said, like we all have our ethical dilemmas and biases. So I just want to put one of mine here, and maybe you can reflect on that. That sometimes we do have direct consent from our respondents, and as we do as part of our research process, that we make consent forms and we take their consents and all, and that consent is considered for the direct interaction or recording or whatever we are asking them directly. But sometimes it happens that okay, the interview has ended, and afterwards you are making connections because, with your respondents, especially when we are doing ethnography. We build long lasting connections, and we try to go back and forth to our respondents. So when we are interacting with them on an indirect platform, when it is not supposed to be about your research, it is about their social media engagement, it is about their informal chat or connections, there when you see something which you find it is very relevant, it can be useful or valuable for your research, is it okay to assume that we do have their consent and we can use the data? So like, for example, if we see something on their social media platform, they post some picture or they posted something, and we find that okay, the screenshot may be can be useful for our research. So sometimes I do tend to ask them that, can I use this, can I screenshot this? But sometimes I feel like they have given their consent, and I have also asked them that if I can use their photos and all. Maybe I should go forward without asking, and without asking again and again for every other thing. So how you reflect on it? Like, what are your thoughts?
That's a very important question. Something that I think many of us we don't. We are not taught. We don't teach. But it happens in the field, and we learn through the field. And I think that's an important question, that where does this boundary of data collection stops and informal interaction starts? And it leads us to this murky ground of what is covered by the ethical consent, the ethics part of the research. In your case, definitely, I feel that if you're taking permission while using the photos, it's important, because when you are taking consent, you're not taking consent of the entire life, right? Like, you're not taking consent of their life in all spheres. You are taking consent at that point in that time. So I feel that it's always good to take and ask consent. But I do feel there are murky grounds, because when I stop recording and then I have an informal conversation with them, or if you're doing participant observation, you're not constantly writing down notes. You are just participating, especially the field work that I'm doing these days. I go to different community centers and I engage with my participants, and I record all of that. Uh, I record it later. I don't record it immediately. So, but then obviously I've shared it beforehand that this is that is the reason. What are the reasons of me participating with them? Why I'm engaging? So I think that is okay, but when you're using someone's other sources, I think it's always better to ask. And I think Dr. Neetu has more experience, so I think she'll be able to tell that, this informal interaction, does that also is covered under the ethical consent thing? Because we are getting into this murky ground.
Yeah, actually, what is ethics? We can't reveal the identity of the person. Like when we do in FGD, or we are talk in groups, like taking their attitudes and their perspective about some issues. So what we do, like we talk and we take consent that we are talking to you, but we are not going to reveal your names, your identities, but we are going to say, like, and there are so many studies in the anthropology where we change the name of village also. Like, so we can ask people, like, in my experience, what I felt, the rural people from the villages, they have less taboos and stigmas, uh, because they don't feel like that, don't name my village or all, but we do change the name of villages. We don't take direct names of the respondents or participants to whom we are talking. But actually what happens, and what I experienced during my work in care homes especially, there are people who in India don't want to reveal their identity, especially they don't want to tell that I am living here, my children are somewhere else, and they feel bad that they don't want to reveal to their neighbors, to relatives, that where they are living and what they are experiencing. Actually, there are so many issues, because in Indian setting, the family is the primary caregiver, where parents are responsibility of the children to take care of. So there are so many things. It depends upon the culture, upon nationality where you are working. But yet, taking consent is very, very important while you are working as talking to an informal way or a formal way. You must ask them, and they don't reveal the names. And if they say that you can name the place where they are living, you can. And another thing is, like, nowadays it's about the social media. There are people, because during interaction sometimes they feel happy and they take pictures or like this. But we have to careful about this, because there are so many good anthropologists. I know, I worked, but I studied them, that they went to the islands and worked there and took pictures and post in their books. And they have never took any consent to them, and they published. And I don't think it is a good idea that you reveal their things without taking consent of them.
Thank you.
I don't know if that was enough, but I mean,
It
I
was
it does
not
give
enough.
us.
Actually, it was not enough, because it's a very, what can I say? It's a so many confusions of the things
Yeah,
when
but
you
I
go to
think,
the field.
yeah, but I think it's always better to just share it with your informants that, I mean,
Yeah,
you'll be using
that
such and such information.
generally I always do that. That's why I'm saying that it is very important that you share what you are, where are you from, and what you are working, and why you are here.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Barbara has a question.
Yeah. So first, thank you so much for such an insightful and broad and comprehensive talk. And I can say that I can relate a lot to a lot of issues and questions you have and experiences that you have shared from fieldwork. And I feel that we are this webinar is a meeting point of different epistemologies and ontologies, or just put simply disciplines, which is great because yes, there is this participatory turn, or I would say hype also in anthropology, which which is the discipline in which I was trained and in which I am now couched, we have to find our way to it, or like we have to embed ourselves in that. But so I will now just very shortly tell about, try to answer your questions, Ashwin, and then I will have a comment, but please take it as as an invitation to react. So I don't think my fieldwork was participatory enough. I tried to do it. So I was doing research in a town in Northeast Italy with people living with dementia, some institutionalized, some not, and their families. And when I envisaged this fieldwork, I thought that definitely it's going to be very participatory, and I will be doing visual anthropology as well. But how it ended up is nobody had. First, like when I wanted to invite people to take more active involvement or agency and asking questions, like guiding my research, they didn't know why I'm doing this. So, for example, they would even say that, why? But you just tell us what you want. So that is one. They, like when I wanted to honor the time they have allocated in interacting with me, and I suggested that I put their name as co-producers of the video that I have produced. They asked me why, but why would you do that? So that is one. And now and that is also why I love so much your attempt to probe the issue of time and all other things that we reduce maybe a bit to time, like those ideas of like the effect of time on on our positionality, on the stories that we all create with participants. I think I'm now at the stage of writing up my thesis, and I can't imagine inviting anyone there. First, because at this stage, it's not maybe too confusing anymore, but I still don't think that inserting any other voices than mine would help. Of course, this thesis will then be a product, and it will, in some other way, it will generate other social relations. But yeah, so my research is not participatory at all. But that makes me leads me to this question. Like, first, like, is life participatory enough? And second, isn't this question of like this term participatory, doesn't it obscure more than it reveals? And shouldn't we be probing it and maybe even rebelling ourselves from it? Because like, what does it bring? So that is, I'm not skeptical. Well, I am skeptical, but I'm open and I'm interested.
Yeah. I think, that is what research is all about, right? Like to be skeptical, and that is how you learn and know more. Even my introduction to participatory methods has been more recent, and so this very important point that you raised was that, while writing, I don't know if you can include more people, and I think that is never the case when it comes to writing, because it is your thesis, your research paper, what you want to say. But my idea was to tell that, engaging my participants when I'm doing the analysis, because right now I'm doing data collection, but also trying to do the data analysis, and it helps me ask more questions, which I take back to my informants. So in that way, I was telling that, we could involve our participants in terms of data analysis, but once you're finally done with it, writing is obviously up to us. So that, I think, would be, that would not be feasible. But I'm also very open to questioning the idea of participatory methods. And as you said that, more recent, it has been a very like late introduction. And as an anthropologist, you always say that, ethnographers were doing this forever. Those questions. Yeah, exactly. There are limits to what a researcher can do. I think with all these turns and shifts and changes that are happening in disciplines, we are coming up with newer ways of putting, sometimes expanding whatever we already knew. So I feel that as a slight expansion from qualitative methods, but and in no way I do have my own inhibitions for participatory methods.
Thank you. I think that this is also something that we can talk about in the next, well, I'd say decades as a interdisciplinary group.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I'm afraid we are forced to do that, or I'm happy that we are forced to do that in the next decades. There is another question by Priyanka Barpuyare, but if Priyanka, if you don't mind, that I just so that we don't forget that I first, or Daniel, if you want to go ahead and ask your question yourself. If you are still there, or if you want me to read it, then please say so in the chat, and I'm happy to do so. Daniel, are you still there?
Hello, you have
Yes.
my. Thank you. Sorry, my devices have a problem. Sorry.
Perfect. Please go ahead.
I really enjoy your presentations, and thank you very much for your good workshop. I had some experience doing in-depth interviews with older men and women among the Jav tribes in eastern Kurdistan. When I going back to my city, my people that always I know them, I feel somehow it wasn't just like before when I sitting with the older men in my city, and somehow I really felt out of place. I felt aligned to it. So when I said reintegrate it, it's not like someone was separated from his society, his community, and coming back to his society. I was always there. But this time it was for a research. It was for a data gathering. So this made me feel even more distant from them. So this is my question about this challenge, that how this new position can be, how can I put it? Our position is always affects every moment of our research, and we can try minimize it, but it will not disappear. Yeah. Even if you speak to your father as a audience, as a participator.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I completely get your point, especially when you refer to talking about your research to your parents. And I was working with the older adults in aging studies during my PhD, and I don't know, somehow my parents, who were older adults and I was collecting information, never became my informants. So that is something that I think raises important question, that sometimes even when you are part of the society as an insider, because there are no boundaries whatsoever, it becomes slightly more unnerving. So for example, my own research, my own fieldwork that I'm doing here in Germany, I would visit certain community centers, temples and gurudwaras, and sometimes I will feel so out of place, and what should be the ways to actually make me feel integrated, because to the researchers in the institute, they would think that, as an Indian, it would be very easy to just immediately become part of Indian communities here and get information. But then there are certain restrictions, and still you have to make that connection, develop that relationship, and that happens over the passage of time. It doesn't happen immediately. But with this really strong closeness to your informants, and how do you make sense? I think I would ask others, maybe Christine and Dr. Neetu, if you can help me out here, that if your informants are very close, how do you collect information?
Uh, Actually, I read this in chat box, the Daniel's question, and there are two things. You first you ask yourself, do you really want to take your parents or grandparents as one of the respondent? So, do you feel that? Are you justifying all those things? Because it's sometimes a lot of things about them, but there are a lot of things you don't know about them, because it's like you see in a family, like opening up with these things, sometimes there is a better environment, so generally we don't take our parents or grandparents as a respondent. But in case you want to see, like, you most of the time you see how they are living, how they are dealing with all those issues, but there are things which you don't want to be never shared with you. So there are certain things, like you can talk on small things, like you start your interaction with them, like recalling your childhood memories and try to relate with them, talk about your ask about your childhood experience to them, remember your childhood days and connect with them and ask someone about their own childhood. And second thing is about their younger days, what struggles they had in bringing up you, or like bringing up your parents, like these things. So these things make you more connected, like talking about your childhood days, their younger days, their struggles. In this way, you can connect and explore the things what you are trying to like. First thing is a connection with the participant, whether it is your relative or outsider. You have to make connect, and it is with experience. It is not any trick, or in a one moment you can connect with someone. Like it's your experience, your way. Like bring some common points in which you can talk. Just break the gel, just break the barriers between you and others, and in this way you can carry on.
Thank you very much for your comment. I would love to hear more about this, but I'm afraid that we're running out of time. It's 12 o'clock, and there is still one question by Priyanka. I'm tempted to just let the question, Priyanka, let you ask your question, and if we can have a very brief answer, then I hope that we satisfied everyone a little. Priyanka, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm sorry I'm joining a bit late. I think I've got a round of COVID again, so just worried about that. Actually, it's not so much question, but just I think because all our researches are kind of on similar realm. Going to Daniel's point, I think we're doing social sciences, so we're not working a petri dish. So even if you're working with other people, getting the inputs of people that is nothing wrong. It's always like thing that this is what I saw growing up. I mean, how can we not bring in our personal experiences? So that's obviously there. I'm personally doing intimate ethnography, where I am doing research with women in my family, and other half are other women that I don't know from before. So that's definitely, there's a lot of need for intimate ethnography. And I think finally about the ethics and participatory, I think we are at an age right now where we just want to make things really participatory, even if they're not. It's almost like DEI and EDI, exercises where we want diversity, equity, and what's the I, inclusion. But then because those are good buzzwords, but we're not really knowing what that means. If it's truly participatory, that really requires time, which is like getting people to say that you tell us what you want the research to be about, and that could be completely different from us as researcher, what our intention is. So I think if we drop the idea and the obsession of making things participatory, and then at the same time get people to, our participants, research participants, to tell us what they would like researched about themselves, and then if we're able to make space for it, then maybe it's participatory. So I suppose it's like aim for low and then see what, I mean, aim for high things, but then let's just have lower expectations, and the ethics of it, my research participants actually want their names to be in my research, because these are older women. They're like, finally somebody wants to write about us. And my very white European university, which is trying to do the right thing, do not give a damn about these women, because they think they're vulnerable. And the older women are like, how dare you call me vulnerable? So they're like, no, they have to be anonymous. So I'm like, what do I do? So I think ethics and consent, like in sex, is always a constant changing process that has to be iterated. I think that's also in field work too. And you need time, you need resources. And I don't think we all of that have that. So we cannot make, it is that positionality, right? Who has the funding, who is able to do what's possible. So it just comes down to that. I suppose that's my understanding from my own research that I've found, and the thesis that I'm finishing. So yeah, but this is really wonderful to listen to.
Thanks, Priyanka. In some way, I agree, and I think the approach that you were saying, right? I mean, the push should not be immediately jumping into participatory methods and then starting your work, but the other way around, the one that you suggested, right? To extend the already existing qualitative frameworks and then trying to engage the older people or your research participants. So, I mean, I completely agree with that. I mean, immediately not to jump into what is the hot topic in the field, but to try to actually make sense of your field and what the informants want to discuss about. And that is why I always said that, to push it from the other side, from the qualitative side, and try to make it more engaging. And not the other way around, not entering the field through this very aspect approach of making them participatory, even if they don't want to. I think the owners then, not giving the responsibility, but then whatever your informants are comfortable in. And the second thing is, I mean, I don't know the answer, because I mean, as an anthropologist, I was told both in India and in the UK that as an anthropologist, you don't use the real names. But in your case, your informants are showing their autonomy, their agency, and they would want you to use the names. And I don't know how to go about it, because whatever I mean, in something that is something that I would obviously, all of us would want to explore, that how do you make sense of these new realities, or what your informants are saying. But
there is a lot of research in research on resistance movement studies, where activists actually want their names to be out, because finally they're getting, so there is a lot. So I did a whole lit review on where participants want their names, on the ethics, and that's not being unethical, but it's actually being ethical about what, I mean, it's that tension, it's literally problematizing it here.
And I think the whole point of all of it is to be ethical of whatever is the way. I mean, I think the best thing about social sciences is, obviously, there's no completely white or completely black thing. There's nothing right or wrong, but then you trying to be ethical in the field and with your data.
There are so many gray areas, and it's a social changes, and you have to accept it, I think. So there is a need to rewrite the rules of ethics if people are willing to reveal their identities.
Yet we have ended with a very realist note. Something that we can feel comfortable with. No big invitations to rethink the social sciences towards participation, but just small bits and pieces of trial and error.
Yeah, exactly.
And being very mindful, not only mindful, but I think also bodily aware of where you are moving and why you are moving there and who is moving with you and who is not. So I think that there is quite a complexity that has opened up here, and I hope that we can take it with us to the next session, to the next sessions of today. First, let me thank the speakers, Dr. Neetu Batra and Dr. Ashwin Tripathi, for engaging us here in these movements. And I think we have moved beyond reflexivity. I think that engagement is really about bumping into things and being hit by them and maybe also a bit broken by them. And I think that there have been movements in that regard. So thank you very much for your time and efforts to be here with you. Thank you also to all the participants for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed. We will be posting the recordings of this webinar on the events webpage in the course of today, by the end of today. This is the program for the rest of the day. If I was just typing it in the chat. If you're missing one of the links to one of these two sessions, then just send an email to agenet@gmail.com, and I'm happy to provide you with these links. I'm afraid that's the end of it. And I wish you all, I also want to thank Barbara Pieta for being my co-organizer and partner in crime in this regard. And I'm sure that we will continue this discussion afterwards. Well, I have nothing left to say, but I wish you a pleasant day and lots of productive reflections and some mildness towards your own possibilities as a researcher and as a person. And I hope to see you in the course of the day or in one of our next events organized by EASA, IOAS, or the Institute of Ethnology. So thank you very much. And
Thank you.
a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christine. It's really good to connect with all of you.
Thank you. And see you at 3 p.m. for all of those who will be there.
See you all there for Anna Wanka and Anna Urbaniak. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Neetu and Ashwin. I hope you are satisfied also with the audience, but it was very super interesting. And the
Yes, yeah, I really like the questions. Yeah, really like the questions.